Hi folks, welcome back to Cask Theology, a channel about theology and beer. Now, like a lot of folks, I've had a bit more free time on my hands recently, so I decided to look at what might make some good videos to make in this extra time that I've got. Now, given that my little one-off video about some pop culture theology did way better than I expected, I thought I'd give it another go. So, I popped a poll on my channel and on my Twitter account to see which I should do, expecting one of my ideas to win out, but the poll actually ended with a 50-50 split, so I figured, stuff it, guess I'm doing both. So go grab yourself a drink, here's your obligatory spoiler warning for today's topic, and let's get cracking. Today we're looking at the theology of the Na'vi, a race that we find in the 2009 film Avatar, which is still one of the highest grossing films of all time. I saw it in the cinema with my friends with the 3D glasses and all that jazz, and it was quite the ride. Definitely shouldn't have gone for that large drink though. Now, given the time of this episode, the sequels haven't yet come out, so if they do come out and share more light on things, I'll be sure to do a follow-up episode at some point in the future. As before, I'm going to break it down into 4 little sections. First off, we're going to deal with history and setting, then the core beliefs, then rituals and practices, and then finally we'll do a bit of comparison to the real world. So, without further ado, let's look at the history and setting. History is a bit of a weird word to use since the story takes place sometime in the year 2154. Humanity has apparently used up all of Earth's resources, and rather than go and watch any of Isaac Arthur's back catalogue on how to fix it, we decide to set off to our true neighbour, Alpha Centauri. Or maybe we did watch 1 or 2 of Isaac's videos and then YouTube showed us a cat video or something. Anyway, let's steer this back to the point. Humanity discovers a gas giant orbiting Alpha Centauri b that they call Polyphemus. Orbiting this giant is a moon a little smaller than Earth that we christen Pandora, and it turns out that Pandora contains a ridiculous amount of a mineral that can solve all of Earth's energy woes, and it's called unobtainium. Even more incredibly, this world is teeming with life, and some of it is sapient. But rather than some high-tech aliens like, say, the prawns from District 9, or the ones from Contact, or from Arrival, the Pandoran residents seem to be in their Neolithic period. Also, we decided not to watch any history YouTuber ever, and decide to set up shop on Pandora and mine all the valuable minerals and generally ignore any local protests. It's not revealed how long we've been present there, but according to the main character, Jake, the journey takes 6 years, and when he arrives there is a very well established colony there with a military presence, not governmental but a private army. Some of the holographic displays show great strip-mined regions, and we're shown huge remote-controlled digging vehicles. The operation is being funded by an unknown company with some serious Wayland Yutani vibes, and Pandora back home in Sol captures the imagination of the old deepest, darkest jungle, with certain Pandoran geography being mere legend back home, such as the floating Hallelujah Mountains. However, we haven't killed everyone with space smallpox at this point, so efforts were made by a small science team to establish some good relations with this race, who call themselves the Na'vi. Using biomechanical engineering to create artificial Na'vi bodies, the science team could transfer their minds into these avatars and interact with the aliens on their own terms, since the environment of Pandora is extremely hostile for humans. The atmosphere can kill you in minutes if the wildlife doesn't. Efforts were initially made to create schools to teach the natives English, and efforts were made to provide medical care. These efforts apparently broke down into violence, which caused the project to be abandoned. Given the events of the movie, this is probably more on the human side of things, since the scientists, military, and corporate factions of the colony all disagree on how best to interact with the Na'vi, creating a clash of cultures. Now, during the events of the movie, we get a glimpse into Na'vi life, which of course naturally includes their culture and theology, which is what we're going to look at now. The Na'vi holds great reverence for Awa, who is the metaphysical embodiment of the world on which they reside and who guides all life on Pandora to maintain the delicate balance of life. All life is therefore connected and to be honoured. All life is energy from Awa. This energy is borrowed, and at some point it must return to Awa so it can be used again. However, this goes much deeper than similar beliefs found on Earth, as due to a quirk of the biology of Pandora, this is a literal connection. A Na'vi, through connecting tendrils, can link their mind to that of another creature in the form of touch telepathy. Naturally, since the Na'vi are sapient, they get to be in the driving seat. This method is used to tame animals for domestic and combat purposes, and a rite of passage is to tame one of the more volatile beasties of the jungle. The mythical heroes of the Na'vi are those who manage to tame some of the wildest of beasts. This connectivity goes far further than just with animals. Using these tendrils in their ponytail-like connection, which is called a queue, they can commune with the memories of their ancestors using trees they call trees of voices, and they can offer prayers to Ewa through this direct connection. There is one particularly holy site for the Na'vi all across the globe called the Tree of Souls, which is a massive tree resembling a glowing weeping willow, and a focus point where they can commune with Ewa herself. This tree does pollinate, and observing the actions of the jellyfish-like seeds of this tree, you can interpret the will of Ewa. Rituals at the tree involve the Na'vi connecting to the roots to form a great united network. The tree is also capable of connecting to those who do not have these connecting tendrils, such as, say, humans. The scientists have many theories on this phenomenon, essentially believing that the entire planet, with its many trees and root connections, are similar to that of a human brain, a mind in itself, a sentient planet. But for the Na'vi, it's as simple as this. All souls come from Ewa. When they die, they return to her. She gives, she takes away. The great trees that they live in are provided by her. Their food is from her. Death is from her. And it is merely her claiming her own back in the name of nature's balance. This is probably why there was such a cultural clash with the humans. Trying to live in complete harmony with nature is very different to mastery of it. Disease and death is natural, the will of Ewa, and we should not interfere with it. As the Na'vi are connected to their god and nature both spiritually and physically, this reflects a lot in their culture, beliefs and practices. For the Na'vi, the afterlife is pretty much a given fact for both themselves and for any other life form on Pandora, which means a heightened respect for both nature and natural practices. This may explain why technology in society hasn't advanced like the humans had. To destroy or disrupt nature is to destroy and disrupt their world and their god. Thanks for a creature's life is given for every kill that is going to be food, or an apology is given if it was unnecessary. As previously mentioned, the wisdom of their ancestors is highly revered, especially since this wisdom can be directly accessed via connecting to a tree of souls. Being a hunter-gatherer society, great emphasis is put on these two aspects, and since there is no written language and a reverence for ancestral knowledge, storytelling and ritual is an important part of Na'vi society. Harmony is important to them, and while there are many differing clans of Na'vi, outright warfare is quite rare, since a focus on harmony is a universal trait amongst all clans. But being hunters, warfare is not unheard of, and their warriors will be ready with poison-tipped arrows. This is why the protagonist of the movie actually succeeds at connecting with the Na'vi where the scientists had failed. There are no nerds in Na'vi culture, so when Jake declares that he is a warrior, suddenly the clan takes notice. Community is highly important, and we see instances of communal sleeping, vast communal meals, and religious rituals. When Jake is accepted as one of them, the whole clan come to lay hands on him. It can be assumed that death is also not the worst punishment for a Na'vi, but some sort of shunning or removal from this collective. As a side note, when Jake is first led to the Na'vi home tree, he is led with a knife not to his neck, but to his ponytail, since severing your connection to nature and Ewa could reasonably be assumed to be the absolute worst fate for a Na'vi. Since there is no writing, storytelling and lore is very important, and each clan has got its keeper of lore and knowledge about how to commune with Ewa and the rituals involved with doing so. They are generally married to the clan's chief and the highest ranking female of the clan. These lore keepers pass down the oral traditions, which include how a consciousness can be physically transferred from one body to another via the Tree of Souls, and how to interpret Ewa's will when the seeds of the Tree of Souls cross your path. These seeds, also known as wood sprites, are called pure spirits and are seen to be manifestations of the will of Ewa, and they are buried with the dead so that their soul will pass through the many interconnected roots of the plants and trees to return back to Ewa. Other practices we see the shaman doing are the use of blood extracted by a small spiky tool to divine with using the taste of it, and the shamans leading the clan in a trance-like state similar to what can be observed in some indigenous earth cultures. Now, the Na'vi, being a tight-knit people, are very, very wary of outsiders, and they are aware that human ways are very different to theirs and border on blasphemous. They know for a fact that the bodies that the scientists use, while made of flesh and blood, aren't the actual people they're talking to. They refer to them as dreamwalkers, or they'll deride them by calling them demons in false bodies, showing that they have some grasp of the way that they work, and that while they walk and they talk like Na'vi, they are not of Pandora. Now, given these terms, it has to be assumed that the theology of the Na'vi changed drastically upon human arrival. You could even speculate that the concept of demons or negative spirits, and even blasphemy, might not even have been part of their theology until we turned up and they had to adapt it, especially since our methods involve the destruction of nature. At this point in the video, I'm going to ask you guys what you think. Please do feel free to leave your thoughts down below in the comments section. Next up, I'll be tackling the Church of the Eternal Fire from The Witcher, but if you do have an idea for a theology in fiction I could delve into, please do leave me a comment and I'll see what I can do. But first, we have to stick with Pandora and the Na'vi and do some compare and contrast with some beliefs that you might find on a small blue dot 4.37 light years away from them. Now, from what we've learned about Na'vi and their society, it would be easy to say that they are animistic, but on closer inspection, we can see that they are somewhat animistic, somewhat pantheistic, and somewhat monotheistic. Ewa is both their goddess and a personification of nature. Life is, of course, created by energy given by Ewa. It's part of Ewa and returns to her to become part of her again. She is the non-personal embodiment of the balance of nature, but it is later shown that when need be, she can bend nature to her will. But of course, her motivations would be to restore balance. Humans tip the scales one way, so in the film's conclusion, the goddess attempts to tip them back. Given that this is an American movie and the history of that region, it's really easy to draw comparisons with some indigenous religious practices, especially given the themes of the story. We've got the use of all of an animal, we've got a great spirit, we've got a reverence for nature, foreign invaders with guns. In short, we can say that their religion can't entirely be lumped into one category. It's not pantheistic, it's not animistic, it's not monotheistic, it's kind of a mash of all of them. Their afterlife has got a strange Buddhist vibe to it. It's not quite reincarnation, but there is a concept of energy of souls being reused. And let's not forget neo-pagan ideas. Whilst the neo-pagans aren't a single group, there's plenty of similar concepts to the Na'vi's belief, such as reverence for the earth and its ecosystem, found in these religions. Well, that's the theology of the Na'vi all analysed, so until next time, I'd encourage you to grab a drink which contains all natural ingredients and keep asking questions.